Now, in consideration of these elements and factors, we are not in the presence merely of a great traditional account handed down for thousands of years, but of a cleverly devised program, integrated and perfected within a comparatively short period of time. This integration has a definite bearing upon the perpetuation of certain schools of philosophy and mysticism that originated in antiquity and also passed through various vicissitudes in the rise of European culture. Let us try to draw a picture of Europe at the time of the emergence of alchemy. Europe itself was coming out of the Dark Ages. It had just passed through the Renaissance and the Reformation. The human mind was beginning to break the tremendous bonds that bound medieval man to a reactionary traditionalism. The human mind was also rebelling against the dogmatic theology which dominated this entire period of European history. For several hundred years, men had been unable to use their minds. In the first place, there was no way of training minds. There were no schools. There were no universities. There was practically no opportunity for the average citizen to become educated. The second problem was that Europe was devastated by natural and man-made catastrophes. The bubonic plague swept Europe, and during the course of about 300 years, its periodic ravages totaled somewhere in the neighborhood of some 50 to 100 million human beings died of this plague. During this same period also, the rise of the Inquisition is to be noted, and the tremendous attack upon heresy, upon liberalism and free thinking of all kinds. Rebels of that period like Bruno, Savonarola, and even Paracelsus paid with their lives, or with their worldly goods and honors, for their efforts to break through this traditional path. In this same period, demonism and demonology and necromancy flourished. The mysterious magic attributed to King Solomon was restored. The grimoires came into existence, and men went out to crossroads at night to invoke spirits. It was a time of rather dismal intellectual benightness. Yet this oppression forced upon man was not exactly in order with his growth and evolution. A more ancient man had achieved much more. The Greek and Roman civilization had given to the world a magnificent look. The philosophical attainments of Egypt and the Near East were spectacular. And these achievements and accomplishments did not simply die. They couldn't. The human being will not stop thinking and cannot stop thinking because someone tells him he must. Thus, there was beneath the surface of European thought and European life a tremendous surge of intellectualism, a surge which could not break through, but which did begin to emerge as soon as the Protestant Reformation began to lift the boundaries on human thinking. Now we know, as I have told you in other lectures, that after the Crusades, the returning Crusaders and the Templars and many other groups brought back to Europe a great deal of wisdom from the Near East. Also, the rise of Moorish culture in Spain resulted in a liberation of the human mind and a return of lines and departments of knowledge hitherto long removed from European civilization and culture. We know that all through this transition period, secret societies originating in antiquity and perpetuated quietly but strenuously by certain individuals, did move beneath the surface of European life and politics. These societies, striving for survival and also for their major purpose, which was the liberation of the human mind, continued to operate quietly but effectively, as we know from the stories of the troubadours, the guilds, and many other groups. Now, as far as it is possible to determine, alchemy was devised as a means of perpetuating a secret kind of knowledge under the symbolism of chemistry. Now, why was chemistry chosen? Let us reply by asking another question. Why did the Dionysians and later Masonic organizations use architecture for exactly the same purpose? In other words, we know that the Dionysians believed that the building of a temple was the symbolization of the building of society and of the human soul. But at a time when it seemed advisable to move in secrecy, the active properties of the esoteric lore were concealed under appropriate figures and devices. And just as the building of Solomon's temple came to mean the building of human society, so the transmutation of metals came to mean the transmutation of the personal and collective life of humanity. The symbolism was adroit, because the alchemist had hit upon a basic truth, namely that all departments of nature can be brought under one general pattern, and any science thoroughly understood is a key to nearly all other forms of working. During the rise of alchemical symbolism, many princes, powerful leaders of both church and state, hired and maintained alchemists, and carried elaborate research programs, because alchemy promised to transmute base metal into gold and to discover the universal medicine of the elixir of life. And there wasn't a rogue in Europe who didn't want to live longer. And there wasn't a king in Europe who did not want additional funds in the treasury. So the appeal to the cupidity and the selfishness of mankind helped to protect the alchemist from persecution. He had hit upon a wonderful formula. And even though he did suffer to some degree from the greed of princes, still for the most part he was catered to and pampered. And we remember the Street of the Gold Makers in Prague, in Czechoslovakia, where a whole colony of these alchemists worked together for a number of years under the princes of Bohemia and other royal patrons. Now, it must be rather interesting to realize that these alchemists were supported, maintained, and nursed along by the very tyrants who alchemy expected to eliminate. Only timely to carry the step as he must by degrees. Now, if we take the points of the metals and we change these into the 7 liberal arts and sciences, we shall then have a key to the great social reform of the transmutational level of alchemy. In other words, your 7 metals are the 7 departments of human society. They are the 7 arts and sciences. They represent the 7 races, the 7 continents, all of the great systems of septiums by which the world's life and progress are measured. Now, in the transmutation of metals, another important point was brought out, and that is that the outer bodies of the metals are irreconcilable. Therefore, that you cannot force iron and lead together and cause them to accomplish an alchemical mystery. You can fuse them to produce an alloy of some kind, but you cannot force them together to release their own spiritual power. Therefore, before metals or elements can be given a new birth in the spirit, they must die. And the death of elements, the destruction of minerals, the complete elimination of the formal nature of the forms of things is part of the alchemical procedure. Therefore, alchemy was a death and a resurrection. All of the outer bodies and structures of metals must die before the spirits of these metals can unite to form the mysterious transmuting agent, which is called the red lion. This again has very great significance, and the alchemist finds comfort in the words of Scripture, that unless a man be born again, he shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. For every one of the forms of nature must die before the life within that form can be liberated or released. Therefore, alchemy then approaches the problem of human intelligence, and it says that before the individual can become wise, he must destroy the false mind, which presumes to possess knowledge. He must destroy opinions before facts can come. He must tear down old walls before he can build a new house. And in the doctrines of the alchemical mysteries, it was first necessary to destroy the personality or the individuality of metals before they could be brought together to form the transmuting agent. After a great deal of research, I was finally able to recover ancient drawings of the original doors of the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris. The reason that was important was that the original doors, which were removed at the time of the French Revolution, that these doors, which were cast in bronze, and I suppose to have been the work of the devil, all such interesting things were at that time. One of these doors was the complete formula of alchemical transmutation. The doors were a mass of hermetic symbols. Now these doors could not have been placed there by the chemists, unless these chemists had also been in very intimate association with the cathedral builders. It was part of the same type of guild. Another guild that is of very great interest to us is the Bookmakers Guild, the printers. And if you study the columns and trade emblems and symbols of the great presses like Gutenberg and Fuss and Caxton, you will find that each one of these presses had its master's mark, and that these book builders and makers were also bound together in a fraternity, which is the reason why it was possible through the medieval and early modern period for ciphers and secret devices of all kinds to be introduced into books. This could not have taken place had it not been for the guilds, this tremendous body of men who were bound together by a common purpose. And that common purpose was the restoration of the golden age in the world.